we're done with the news for this week, and we're going to move on to our segment. We are moving on. We're going to look at the AFC East and the NFC East. I had to be very careful there not to slag ourselves, Jake, and say the NFC least, as we're well known.
But NFC East is what it is. It's the best division in all of the NFL.
We're going to start off with the AFC East, and I guess like every division, it's got its own little micro environment. There's a few storylines going on. Obviously, Buffalo have been the powerhouse for the last couple of seasons since kind of Tom Brady left the Patriots. Then the Jets are the dumpster fire that is the Jets constantly since I've been watching the NFL. The New England Patriots, Adam, we're going to get your insights there on how they're getting on and what you think of how their preseason's going. And then the Miami Dolphins, who always seem to have the right tools in place to have a good season, but it's never guaranteed. So I guess we'll get the easy one out of the way first. Jake, Buffalo are surely just going to win this division again this year.
Yeah, hands down. Who else is going to win it, really? It'd have to take a massive step up from Tua with Tyreke Hill to really change that division up. But I just don't think they're going to be able to beat out Josh Allen and the Bills' defense. I just think it's going to hold up too much for the rest of that division to even get involved in it.
Yeah, Rain, we saw Buffalo in a preseason game this weekend, or at least I remember watching it, and like Josh Allen just looked so impressive. Like they scored. Who were they playing? I don't remember who they were playing, but I think they scored on their first 6 drives of the preseason game. And I know it's a preseason game, but when your starters are in for one drive, you want them to rip the other team apart. And that's what they did. They just didn't skip a beat. Do you think he can get even better, or is just doing what he did last season enough to get this team into a deep playoff run?
This guy is a freak athlete, right? Like, he is the white Cam Newton, but he also has a better arm. He can rip that ball 60 yards on a dime, and he has all those pieces around him as well that just make it even better. The only maybe minor issue with that offense is the running back position, but even then, it's not too bad, particularly when you have a quarterback who can put in an 100-yard game on the ground as well as 300 yards through the air. They're pretty much unstoppable on offense. Now, on defense, I do have my concerns. They have had issues with the pass rush in recent years. But that being said, they have added Von Miller to their core, so he might end up being a bigger threat on the pass rush side of things.
Adam, you've obviously seen Buffalo much more than we have over the last few seasons. Have you figured out a way to beat them yet?
Well, apart from playing them in the snow and just running the ball down the throat, no.
And what about the rumors? The rumors have come out that Von Miller on Twitter reached out to OBJ to get him to sign to that wide receiver core. How dangerous would that make them if they add Odell Beckham Jr. into that wide receiver room?
Oh, just ridiculous. Like, they're already unbeatable on offense. They add in OBJ on top of Gabriel Davis, who could have a bit of an outbreak this year, and Stephon Diggs too. I just don't know who's going to stop that. And it certainly won't be our secondary.
But he seems to still have a problem with Patrick Mahomes. Hasn't the Chiefs kind of stopped them in the last couple of off-season runs? Am I misremembering that?
Is it the coin toss? Yeah, well, the coin toss last year, I suppose.
Yeah.
I think the Chiefs came back in from it, won the coin toss, and just went straight up the field and scored to win the game.
Yes. I remember we had a deep conversation about how we were all going to change the game on that coin toss and how it absolutely wasn't fair. But I think if that's the only way you can beat them, I think that's going to be a worry, because you can't rely on that 50-50 shot every single season. Next up on my list is the New York Jets. Adam, they're dumpster fire, and I'm going to let you just trash talk them in whatever way you wish.
I mean, I don't think I can say anything about the Jets. They're just that bad. I mean, Zach Wilson, I don't see how he's any better than Sam Darnold at this point. I haven't seen him do anything. I mean, Mike White came in last year and played better than him.
Well, he did do his mom's best friend.
Well, I suppose he gets points for that, but it doesn't work for him in the football field.
Do you think this is an important year, given, as you mentioned, White that came in, who, given the struggles of the team, looked, let's say, equally as capable as him? Do you think he needs to show this season that he has, let's say, the right characteristics to be a long-term starting quarterback, or at least a passable starting quarterback until the Jets come across some other diamond in the rough?
I think he's definitely going to have to this year. You know, if Joe Flacco is a Super Bowl winning MVP sitting behind him as well, albeit he's probably past it a bit now, but he could easily step in and still fill in a job for a few weeks. You know, White did it last year, but Wilson just didn't look impressive to me at all.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is definitely a big year. And I think his injury, I think he's fine for week one, maybe not, but it's definitely a big season for him. And if he can't do it this year, they may try and move on at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
I think, can we just pull the brakes on like the Mike White Jets legend forever talk? He had one excellent game and a couple of good games or whatever, but it's like, it's the same with the Davis Mills hype we had last season. It's sustained success, and like, he wasn't picked like that far down and played probably undrafted free agent and have sustained success in the league. How often does that happen? Like, that's just not going to happen for Mike White or Davis Mills, I'm afraid.
True, but my argument here, Jake, is, can you even name any other Jets players? So if we don't talk about Zach Wilson and Mike White, who else do we talk about?
Quinnen Williams, Sauce Gardner.
Oh, that's true.
Elijah Moore, Michael Carter, Breeze Hall. Come on.
I did. In fairness, I did completely whiff on that draft class they've just had with the 3 first-round draft picks. Ryan, how much of an impact do you think that can have, given the amount of holes that this team appeared to have last season?
Yeah, I mean, like, I felt that the main issue that they needed to focus on this offseason was the offensive line. And I don't think they've really done that enough. It's all well and good bringing in these, like, receivers and running backs who Wilson can throw to and hand off to. But when your O-line is crap, I know this is a Panthers fan, you're not going to have success as a football team. I think on the defensive side of the ball, you know, they had a pretty good draft. You know, Sauce Gardner looks like an absolute athlete, so he may shore things up just a little bit. But still, yeah, for a team that had 3 first-round draft picks this year, I think they're still a long way off where they need to be.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what kind of elevation. If you listen to Jets fans, and I do apologize for the over-eager slander that was happened earlier in the show, but I think if you do talk to Jets fans, they have been very, very strong on how good that first-round draft class was for them. But as you said, Rain, things like Sauce Gardner, it can be hard for those guys to really impact the game, especially if you've only got one on one side. The teams tend to just attack opposite. And like you said, that really good offensive line is what makes bad teams more competitive, because even if you don't have the quarterback behind them, if you have good running backs, which by all accounts Bryce Hall looks like he could be, it can really make a big difference. So having the outside weapons can be quite weakened without a good offensive line.
Yeah, I think the biggest get for them this offseason was actually CJ Uzomah, the tight end coming over from Cincinnati. I think he's going to be a big part of that offense. He's going to help out Zach Wilson. And just rolling it back to everybody's hate on Zach Wilson, after he came back from that injury last year, it kind of looked like the game slowed down for him just a little bit. Like his stats were night and day better than they were before he went down with that injury. So I wouldn't be too quick to say he's a draft bust just right now.
I think one of the big problems for him is the next man that we're going to talk about, and that's the quarterback for the New England Patriots, Mac Jones. He has performed very well, and I think it was a very good pick by Bill Belichick, which is probably not a surprise. But Adam, he seems to fit the system that Bill likes to play. I don't want to call him a game manager because everyone says that's a dirty word, but he does what he needs to do. He's very efficient with the ball. Doesn't necessarily strike long distance, but if you can't get the ball back, then those 10, 15-yard strikes that really suck the clock and that are accurate and on time can cause a lot of problems for teams.
Yeah, I think with Mac, as you say, game manager being a dirty word, but I think last year was just as a rookie year. He came in as a starter. And it was just do what you need to do to get the win, whether it's just throwing the dump offs or going deep, which he didn't do very often, but I believe he still had quite a high percentage on that. I think this year they might let him loose a bit more. I think he fitted in quite well because he came from Alabama, from a Bill O'Brien system, to walk straight into what we have done. But McDaniels is gone, and now we have this two-headed, I don't know what to call it, between Joe Judge and Matt Patricia being play caller. How he fits in, I'm not really sure. But the offensive line definitely seems like a weakness at the minute, and that may hinder his development a bit more this year.
Well, we
Matt
saw
Patricia, Joe Judge coming back is a bit like your kids moving out and then just not being successful moving out and having to come back home and live at home again. It's just ridiculous.
Well, we
Yeah, I
did
don't
see
know
back.
who looked at that. I don't know who looked at that Joe Judge tenure at the Giants and said, "Yeah, I want him as
That's
part
my
of my
play
team."
caller. That's
Bring
my
me
play
that
caller.
guy back. You want a QB Neal on 2nd and 10? I got you, bro. Don't worry about it.
But we did see, Adam, a very interesting run in the Pro Bowl game from Mac Jones. He has also chiseled himself down significantly over the offseason. Would you like to see a bit more of that? A bit more, not necessarily dual threat quarterback, but not to be afraid. He's a big guy, as you mentioned. Took it in and bowl a few lads over on the way to a first down here and there.
I think it may definitely help this year. It just adds to his game as well, that we're not solely relying on him throwing the ball or handing it off to Ramondre or Damien. That we can then turn around and go, there's an option here that he can just go himself and then hit the gritty again.
If
like
they start using him as a runner efficiently, I'm gonna be so pissed off for Cam Newton because they just did not utilize him at all when he was there. It was sad to see.
Jake, do you see any way for the New England Patriots to realistically fight for the Bills for that number one spot in the division, or do you think this year is about getting those number two wildcard spots?
No, I don't see them realistically challenging the Bills for that number one. I think their battle has to be like against the Dolphins for number two, and that's what they kind of have to aim for. If they get number one through strokes of luck, then fair play to them. But I think certainly hopping in the wild card would be a win for them.
And Ryan, obviously a classic quiet off-season by Bill Belichick. Were you surprised at all by the little moves that they did make?
To be honest, I can't think off the top of my head of any moves that they actually made over the offseason. I'm sure Adam will tell me, no, they made 10 different moves for big players. But look, I can't remember who they were. Most of the focal point was on the mess that is the offensive coordinator position over the offseason. But yeah, I mean, look, it's a classic Patriots offseason, isn't it? They'll probably end up being successful, even though they don't look like they have talent across the board. I watched them against the Panthers there at the weekend, and to be honest, the first team didn't really do much against the Carolina Panthers seconds. So I'd be worried there. 2 3 and outs versus the seconds, and they had Mac Jones, all of their top wide receivers in the game as well. So yeah, I'd be a little bit worried there for the offense, but Bill Belichick always pulls it out.
They lost a couple of guys as well, didn't they? In free agency, didn't they lose that cornerback? His name is
Jackson.
J.C. Jackson. Yeah, he's gone. Kyle Van Noy has gone off them as well, and then they obviously lost in Kilharry, but that wasn't really less knowable.
That was a win. That's not a loss.
Well, Adam, we'll give you the final word on the New England Patriots. Give us one new player that you're excited to see this season that you think is going to make a nice difference to this team that we can keep an eye on.
I would have said Tyquan Thornton, a wide receiver, but he's out for 8 weeks.
Anyone else?
But they got Matt Judon, didn't they?
Left guard. Judon came in last year.
All right, okay, yeah.
As long as he keeps his form up, we'll be fine. But definitely, I think Cole Strange at left guard, will finally replace Joe Tooney. But whether he's able to step up into that sort of level of play straight away will definitely be interesting to see.
Right, well, we'll move on. The last stop on our AFC East tour is the Miami Dolphins. As with most teams, quarterback is where most of the storylines coming out of the Dolphins are. They have obviously got Tua. He has struggled recently to stay healthy. A lot of debate on all of the punditry shows about whether he does or doesn't, or has or hasn't shown enough to warrant his starting position and not to be put under pressure or get any undue pressure put on him from the coaching staff. They have obviously signed Tyreke Hill. They did him dirty by showing him an underthrown ball in like the first day of preseason camp, where everyone all of a sudden got an extra bit of ammo for Tua's noodle arm. But Jake, what do you make of Tua? Let's put it to bed. Do you think, is it even too early? Have we seen enough of him to be calling it dramatically one way or the other, or do we need much more evidence before we can say with any certainty?
It wouldn't be professional sports if we didn't overreact far too early on a player. I do think it's too early to be telling him like he's not going to be a starter in this league or he's a backup, but you have to look like his position or his teams weren't exactly exciting teams up until maybe this season, maybe last season you could even say, but giving him a tool like Tyreke Hill, this is your moment. If you can't perform with a wide receiver like Tyreke Hill, who can you perform with then? So I'd give him this season, and then you can start thinking about pulling the plug, maybe moving on to a different quarterback. But certainly at least an average quarterback, you don't want to just move on from immediately until you have some other plan in place.
Ryan, how much of an impact do you think Tyreke Hill can have? Do you think it is like everyone says, where it's automatic that he will be as dangerous as he was in the Kansas City Chiefs, or will it take some scheming to kind of get the most out of him?
I think it's going to take some scheming, but I think the guy who's going to benefit most from him being there is going to be Jalen Waddle, right? Because Tyreke Hill is going to draw a lot of attention. He's going to be doubled on every play, which means there's going to be space out there for Waddle, and he's another speed burner. So, he's gonna get himself a career year. I know he's in only year two at the moment. But yeah, I think he's going to have a breakout year. Absolutely. And I think, Tua, all he needs to do is kind of dink and dunk, not do anything too flashy. And he has the tools around him to succeed. They brought in, 3 running backs this season, all of them starting caliber. So yeah, if he's not able to succeed this season with all that going on around him, he never will.
And finally, Adam, on the Dolphins, they had an impressive defense, but last year kind of went very up and down for them. They did finally get a bit of form coming towards the end of the season. Is their success this year more reliant on the defense playing as well as they can, or Tua performing to the expectations the fans have from?
I think it's got to be on Tua this time. You have to score points to win games at the end of the day. The defense can hold them out if you want, but if Tua's not scoring points, then there's not much they can do. Rain's already alluded to it with the running backs as well. I think that may help them because they've brought in Chase Edmonds and Raheem Mostert, who can quite easily start anywhere. But I think the big addition for me that hasn't been mentioned quite a lot is Terran Armstead as a starting left tackle, which will certainly help Tua's protection as well.
Yeah, and especially coming into the season, we saw him work hard. There was some images going around of him. I believe he was in the stadium 3 hours before the last preseason game, going through the motions of the playbook. So clearly you can't ask any more from him on the preparation side. I think now, Adam, it's just time for him to step up and show some of the flash and flair that he showed at Alabama that made him so coveted by all the teams in the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. And, he can do that now. He's got an extra weapon on Tyreke Hill. And it's been alluded to with Jalen Waddle. There's definitely things there that should help him this year.